Hey, if you've been thinking about or researching buying or owning a franchise, this is the most important franchise video that you will watch. I'm gonna shoot it to you straight. I've owned multiple franchise locations. I've bought and sold locations. I've built a $2.5 million franchise business. So let's jump in. All right, so first, don't forget to subscribe. Look, I'm the most honest guy on YouTube. I'm always gonna give it to you straight, and I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't doing that out there. All right, so a lot of you reach out to me asking me your franchise questions and emailing me all sorts of different things. And I'm an encourager of people's dreams. I'm generally speaking half glass full kind of person, but a lot of you have no right owning a franchise. And so this video, I'm gonna talk to you about one, reasons why you shouldn't buy a franchise because of just general limitations about franchising and just being honest about it, because I'd want someone to do the same for me, so I'm gonna do that for you. And the other reason is because of you. And some of you just, again, should not buy a franchise. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet. I'm gonna give it to you straight. We're gonna cut through the BS, so let's get started. And as we get started here, make sure to drop me your franchise comments down below. Also hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm because it shows the video to more and more people. And when I blow up and make it big on YouTube, because I'm about 2,600 subscribers now, but at some point it's gonna be 26,000 and 100,000, and you know, I appreciate all of you guys that have been watching my my videos thus far. It's been a fun journey. All right, so let's jump in. So number one, the first reason why you should not buy a franchise is because you can build a successful business yourself. Imagine this, imagine that you have a skill set already, right? You have, let's say, worked in the industry. Let's say you've been in the roofing industry and you're looking at a roofing franchise. Well, maybe it makes sense for you to just start your own roofing company. Maybe you've been a manager or a salesman and you know the internal workings of how the business works, and you know, overall you have management experience, you have experience hiring and firing people, you know a little bit about marketing, but you feel confident in your abilities to be able to run a successful business. So that's a situation where maybe a franchise, quite honestly, doesn't make sense because there's a lot of pros and cons to buying a franchise. I made a whole nother video about that, and if you haven't checked that out, I'll leave a link for the description below. But yeah, it might make sense for you to own your own business, and it might make sense for you to just, you know, start small. A really good friend of mine him and his wife built a $10 million fire and water restoration business. They started it completely from scratch, and they started it as a carpet cleaning business. And so they niched down and did a carpet cleaning business, and then they started kind of expanding their business and doing tile cleaning, and eventually they built it into a water and fire restoration company. And about 8 years later now, they're doing over $10 million a year in sales in their business. And there are a lot of fire and water restoration franchises. I think ServPro is one of the franchises. Like, you know, that could have been something that they pursued, but it actually saves them a lot of money. I mean, think about a franchise where you're paying, actually we're gonna talk about royalties a little bit in this video, so let's not talk about that right now, but I'll bring up that example later on because it's gonna be important. So make sure you stay until the end of this. Now, no matter what kind of business that you're looking to start, over 1,000 people have downloaded my 7-step blueprint to business profits in 60 days. It's completely free, 28-page PDF, and it will show you step-by-step exactly how to get any business profitable in any industry at any time. So make sure you go to TarekJohnson.com to grab it for free. I will also leave a link in the description below. All right, number two, high startup cost. So look, the reality is franchises, they require a lot of money to get open. Even if you're opening up a low-cost franchise, which I'll post the thumbnail right there of my low-cost franchise video that I made, but even $10,000, that's still a lot of money. I mean, 10 grand, just think about how long it has taken you to save 10 grand. And if you don't have 10 grand saved, well, then you get my point. So as an example, my wife and I invested $300,000 to get our first franchise location open. I'll tell you, it was pretty scary. It was a scary decision. Worked out. We wound up getting it profitable in less than 60 days. After 3 years of owning it and cash flowing, we wound up selling the location and I bought a Ferrari. Just kidding, I didn't buy the Ferrari. But the reality is starting a franchise requires a lot of money. You can raise capital, you can find investors, you can take out a loan on your house, you can get a business loan, you can borrow money from friends and family. There's all sorts of ways in order to get the money to open a franchise business. But the reality is the high startup cost does increase your risk. All right, number 3 is franchise agreements. Okay, so franchise agreements, generally speaking, a lot of franchise companies, they're non-negotiable. If you aren't familiar with what a franchise agreement is, every franchise company requires you to sign your initial agreement, which basically allows you to get the rights to start and own and operate a location and use the name of the franchise. So if you're going to open a Dunkin' Donuts, your franchise agreement allows you the rights to open a Dunkin' Donuts and operate that system. But a lot of the times they are non-negotiable, meaning that even if you have an attorney go through the franchise agreement and go, hey, they should take this line out or they should take this line out because if they use that, they're going to screw you. A lot of the times you can't change it. So you might pay a couple $1,000s to hire an attorney, but the franchisor goes, sorry, we don't change any of the language. So if you don't like the language, then you can't do business with us. That's the way that it works a lot of times. So it's a really interesting reason because a lot of the language in the franchise agreement, it's in favor of the franchisor. Think about it. If you're gonna have a legal document created, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have the legal document created to be in your favor, not the person that you're having sign the legal document for. So that is number 3, franchise agreement. All right, so number 4, unrealistic expectations. So I get this a good amount. So I have people that reach out to me and they go, hey, Tarek, I would like to run a franchise business, work 10 hours a week and make an extra $100,000 a year. And I'm like, okay. I mean, there are franchises that do that. I mean, you just gotta, probably an existing franchise would make the most sense. I'm like, how much money are you making now? I'm making $70,000 a year. Like, what? Hold on, that makes no sense. So have realistic expectations about what you can potentially make in a franchise or how much time or effort that you're gonna have to put in. Look, everyone wants the shortcut. Everyone wants the easy, the little magic pill, the weight loss pill, the workout for 10 minutes and be ripped forever. Like, companies get crazy rich off of selling people quick, get rich quick schemes and formulas. The reality is, running a business, even a franchise, even if you're buying a system, it takes hard work and it takes effort. Now, if you build it up and put the right systems in place, then maybe you can get yourself to a point where you're not spending a lot of time in the business. As an example, our location in California, eventually we moved 2,500 miles away in Florida, and I really wasn't doing much for the business, and it was cash flowing and making its money. Actually, our sales were continuing to grow and grow and grow. And I mean, geez, I was probably putting a couple of hours a week. But in the beginning, like the first couple weeks, I was there 12 hours a day. And there were many times in the beginning of the business where I was sacrificing time on the weekends from playing golf or hanging out with friends or doing something that I wanted to do. Like, I sacrificed in the beginning to get to that point. So don't have unrealistic expectations. And if you do, then maybe a franchise is not for you. Number 5, you don't like following the rules. Hey, here's the reality about a franchise is that you're buying a system, you sign a franchise agreement. We talked about that earlier in one of the earlier points. So you have to follow the rules. You have to follow their system and ways of operating things. And if you don't, then the consequences can be really bad, actually. Not only can you get fined, but they can actually, I'm gonna save that one for you later because we're gonna talk about this as a different point, but the reality is with the franchise, you got to follow the rules. If you don't like following the rules and you're just the type of person where you're like, look, I like to do things my way. I have ideas. I want to implement my ideas. I don't want anyone telling me what to do or telling me how to run my business. Then you should open your own business, and then you can completely be your own boss. Number 6, this is a big one, very big, royalties. So here's the thing. With a franchise, you pay royalties for the rights to operate that system and use it. So as an example, most franchise companies, you have a royalty fee and you have a marketing fee. So the royalty fee, let's say that's somewhere around 7 or 8%. The marketing fee, let's say that's somewhere between 2 and 4%. So combined, you're usually gonna pay around 10% in fees off of your sales. So as an example, if you're doing $500,000 a year in sales and you are paying a total of 10% in royalties, then you're paying $50,000 a year back to the franchise company. That's a lot of money. I mean, $50,000 a year could be the difference between profitability or not being profitable, or it could be the difference in making 50 grand a year or 100 grand a year. So it's a really big deal. What's really important to think about though is the value that you get from paying those royalties. So yes, you're gonna see that money coming out of your bank account and see it on your profit and loss statement, but you're getting the rights to the system. And as an example, our juice and smoothie franchise, like the menu was created, all of the ingredients were chosen. Like we didn't have to think about that stuff. Like we knew how to operate the system. We had operations manuals. And then for the marketing fund, the marketing fund, corporate would do these limited time offer promotions every quarter. They'd come up and create new products, and they tested the products, and then they'd roll it out. They send us a huge packet of a rollout guide and everything for us to follow step by step, and they'd send us new marketing material. So there was a lot of value that I feel like we got off of that. If I had to have built our own juice and smoothie business from scratch, I just never would have done it. There's no chance. And so I think that's one of the benefits about owning a franchise, but that's not this video. It's why you shouldn't buy a franchise. So if the idea of paying royalties bothers you and you don't want to pay royalties, then maybe again, a franchise isn't for you. Number 7, inflated price on supplies. This is an interesting one. I think it was Quiznos, and this part is really off the top of my head. Quiznos, I believe they had this thing where they were making franchisees buy specific materials or ingredients or food supplies through them, and they were really marketing it up. If you remember, Quiznos was huge at one point. Quiznos was everywhere. You saw their commercials, they were blowing up. And now tell me the last time you've been to a Quiznos. Tell me the last time you've seen a Quiznos. Interesting. I digress. But some franchise companies, they will get the vendor relationships for the materials, the supplies, the products, and then you have to buy it through the franchisor. So you'll be able to find that out in the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. You'll be able to see the items where the franchisor might be getting additional kickbacks from. So it's something to look into and be aware of. And if it might turn out that you could find those ingredients, supplies, whatever it is, for cheaper on your own. But a lot of the times there's some cost efficiencies, because if the franchisor has 100, 200, 300 locations, then even with their markup, you're possibly still even paying less than what you would if you just paid retail price for it. But it's something to think about, because there have been franchise companies that have kind of bent people over a little bit on that aspect. So look at the franchise disclosure document, or just ask. It's a question to ask the franchisor, like, hey, do you guys make kickbacks on any supplies or inventory or anything like that? All right, number 8, I referenced this before when I was talking about you got to follow the rules, is termination. So the franchisor, if you break the rules, there's probably a clause in the franchise agreement where they can terminate your agreement. What does that mean? What that means is they can terminate your agreement, like they can end it and be like, sorry, you are no longer a franchise owner. and the consequence of that depends on your franchise agreement. So I don't want to give any generalized advice on how that works, but that's an important thing to look at within your franchise agreement. The reality is that most franchisors are not going to be that strict. They're probably not going to enforce the rules that hard, but if you're rude to them, if you don't follow the rules, if you give them pushback and fight and debate them on everything, then maybe they do. Maybe that's their way of taking back control. You got to think about it from the franchisor's perspective. They're dealing with 100 people, 100 different personalities. Everyone's got their own things that kind of make them tick and idiosyncrasies. So it's challenging from the franchisor's perspective, but if you break the rules, you could be in trouble. I can tell you from my experience, the franchisor that we were with, they were pretty chill. I mean, there were times where I actually thought maybe they should have been a little bit more strict about stuff, but overall they were pretty lax. But some bigger brands might be super strict on stuff, and if you keep following the rules, they keep giving you warnings, they might terminate your agreement, take back your location, and you lose your investment. So it's a scary thing to think about, but it's something that you should be aware of. Number 9, high franchisee turnover. So this, you can usually find this in item 20 of the FDD, but you can see a list of the franchisees that have left the system. And if there's a lot of turnover and a lot of franchisees leaving the system, then you want to question why. Why are there a lot of franchisees leaving the system? Generally in the lower cost franchises, you'll see it more often. It just attracts a different type of candidate, to be quite honest. And the less money people have, the less they're usually willing to, the less they have to risk in that sense. And so anyways, there's higher turnover with lower cost franchises. So something to look at. And if you see there's a lot of turnover, there might be something suspicious. The way to protect yourself here is usually in a franchise agreement, there's going to have to be a list of all the different franchisees. Some will list their cell phone numbers, some will just list the locations for the business phone numbers for the locations. So call them and call as many franchisees as you can and find out about their experience. Good luck trying to hunt them down, which is what you might wind up having to do. And sometimes the franchisor will be able to help you. All right, last but not least, number 10 is poor training. And if a franchise company has a track record of poor training, then it doesn't make sense to do that franchise. I mean, that's one of the main reasons you buy a franchise is for the training, because you're buying a system, right? And you need to be trained on how to operate that system, right? Like imagine you buy a piece of furniture from IKEA, right? One of the reasons why you're buying furniture from IKEA is that it has instructions and you can put it together. Imagine if you just got the box of all the pieces and there were no instructions. I mean, you could probably figure out how to put it together. 1, it'll probably take you longer. 2, you'll probably be frustrated. And 3, you'll probably just return it. So when it comes to a franchise, you want to make sure they have good training. The way that you find that out is asking the franchisor about their training process, and again, talking to existing franchise owners, because they're going to be the ones to tell you if the franchisor actually has good training or not. So those are the 10 reasons why you should not buy a franchise. If you made it this long, congratulations. I'm going to give you a bonus reason to not buy a franchise, and it's if you have a track record of not following through. So if you have a track record of not following through with things, and maybe a franchise is not the best idea for you, the reason being is that it's a big commitment and you're usually signing a 5 or 10 year lease, you're usually signing a 5 or 10 year franchise agreement. And if you change your mind a lot, then don't buy a franchise. Because when you sign up and you're in year 1 and you don't want to do it, and if the business isn't going well, it's probably going to be hard to sell the franchise and get your money back, and you might lose a lot of money. So if you change your mind a lot, probably not a good idea. And I wanted to throw that last little bonus one in there for you. Drop me a comment below. Let me know what your franchise questions are. make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you have not already. And then also make sure to go get my 7-step blueprint to business profits in 60 days. It's awesome. I'll see you on the next one.